Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Released in 1968, 2001, A Space Odyssey was not merely a film, but a gateway that flung open the entire cinematic universe, drawing viewers into a journey both enchanting and nerve-shaking to the core, to then be forever honoured as an immortal monument of science fiction. From the dawn of humanity, a mysterious black monolith appeared like a messenger of fate, initiating a terrifying turning point in the process of evolution. Time turned, humans reached for the moon, and once again stood before the cold imprint of extraterrestrial intelligence. A supreme mission was launched, sending small human beings into an aimless voyage with HAL 9000, the deadly intelligent machine, where the fragile boundary between technology, instinct, and life was torn apart. From there, the journey into space became a surreal maze, opening doors beyond the imagination of all humankind. But more shocking than anything, the making of this masterpiece hides countless chilling stories, from Kubrick's morbid obsession with perfection to dangerous scenes that nearly took an actor's life. And that is only the tip of the iceberg. Prepare yourself, because the terrifying secrets never before revealed behind 2001. A Space Odyssey will leave you stunned before a film that turned HAL 9000 and the Black Monolith into immortal icons of world cinema. 1. Kubrick once plotted to own extraterrestrials. Are you thinking this is unbelievable and absurd? Yet that is the truth about Stanley Kubrick. In the mid-1960s, when 2001, A Space Odyssey was still on the script table, he became obsessed with the prospect that NASA or some director would get there first, announce the discovery of extraterrestrial life, and make his film lose all uniqueness. From a worry that seemed fleeting, Kubrick turned it into a bizarre plan, finding a way to own extraterrestrial life by law. He went to lawyers to discuss registering copyright for life in the universe. It was an idea no one dared to think, an ambition beyond every boundary of reality. When lawyers shook their heads, Kubrick turned to NASA.
Hours a day,
He
6
wanted
days
them
a
to
week,
report
writing the
privately
script.
to him if there was evidence of life discovered before the film's release. That alone was enough to show he was determined to protect his brainchild at all costs, even if he had to go to the very end of obsession. A director daring to calculate turning the whole universe into his own, and that was only the beginning of a chain of shocking decisions behind the scenes. 2. A shot that nearly cost an actor his life right in front of the camera, the breath-holding climax of 2001. A Space Odyssey is when Dave Bowman is locked outside the Discovery and forced to shoot himself into the airlock without a helmet. To capture a moment lasting only a few seconds on screen, Stanley Kubrick required Keir Dalia, the actor playing Bowman, to perform a truly risky action. No safe effects, no shortcuts, only the human body facing danger directly. Dalia had to dive headfirst from nearly 2 stories high, through fake broken boards, while below a massive camera weighing hundreds of kilograms pointed straight at him. The only safety line was so thin that any slip could turn the shot into an immediate disaster. The crew held their breath watching, knowing that with just a small mistake, the actor would trade his life for a few feet of film. That moment happened in a flash, but behind it was the fierce obsession with perfection that Kubrick always pursued. And then, that very obsession with realism pushed everything onto a path of destruction. 3. All the legendary models and props were destroyed by his own hands. After the final whir of the camera on 2001, A Space Odyssey faded. The set still held technical marvels that stunned all Hollywood. The Discovery, more than 16 meters long, a space station rotating like the real thing, countless models crafted to the smallest detail. They were the result of hundreds of artisans, engineers, and designers sweating for years. Their value lay not only in money, but also in labour and creativity beyond their time. But Stanley Kubrick did not look at them with pride. He saw a danger. If any B-movie studio reused them, the world he built would be smeared immediately. In absolute obsession with integrity, Kubrick made a ruthless decision: destroy everything. Million-dollar models were smashed, painstaking props were burned, as if they had never existed. As a result, today almost no original artifact of the film remains. Only images on the screen and chilling accounts behind the curtain. And as if that were not bold enough, another scene in the film put an actor face to face with a killer from nature. 4. A real leopard lunged at a stuntman in an ape suit. From the very first frames of Dawn of Man, Stanley Kubrick wanted the audience to believe they were witnessing the wild early days of humankind. But to reach that absolute truth, he did not choose the safe path. In a brief scene, a stuntman in a thick fur ape suit had to lie motionless as a real leopard lunged straight at him. No models, no effects, no CGI. Everything was life and death confronting each other. Just one uncontrolled swipe, and Hollywood would have witnessed a blood-soaked accident. Around the set, a few animal trainers stood off camera, tensely watching every breath. But at the center, that stuntman was completely alone, holding his breath, waiting for each movement of the wild beast. The final shot exists for only a few seconds on screen, but that risk is enough that today, when recalling it, people shudder knowing that under modern safety regulations, such a horrifying scene would never be permitted. And that was only the beginning of the ordeals Kubrick made actors endure inside harsh costumes. 5. The spacesuit turned into a stifling mobile prison. If on screen the astronauts of 2001, A Space Odyssey appear calm, drifting in space, behind the scenes they were fighting a silent enemy, the very suits they wore. Kubrick demanded the design reach realism down to each detail, from heavy structure to absolute airtightness. The result? Those suits were like mobile prisons, locking the human body in suffocating heat. Under studio lights, the temperature inside the helmet could exceed 100 degrees. Keir Dullea, who played Dave Bowman, repeatedly admitted he felt he was about to faint right on set. The technical team had to drill tiny holes to let air seep in and hide fans off camera to supply a bit of vital oxygen. Yet even with those makeshift solutions, every shot was a silent torture where actors had to keep a calm face while suppressing panic inside. And as if that were not harsh enough, fate tested the crew with a terrifying calamity erupting right on the set. 6. A horrifying fire nearly burned the entire film to ashes. In mid-1966, when 2001, A Space Odyssey was entering the phase of building its most grand scenes, a terrifying incident occurred at MGM Boreham Wood. Flames erupted fiercely, spreading quickly through massive sets built of wood, fabric, and flammable paint. In moments, months of labour by the entire crew stood on the brink of becoming ash. Members rushed in to save spaceship models and cameras weighing hundreds of kilograms, despite toxic smoke and searing heat. When the fire peaked, the aftermath was dreadful. Many elaborate sets were burned, key props badly damaged. But what stunned everyone more was Kubrick's next decision. With perfectionism to the extreme, he insisted that nothing touched by smoke be reused. Although many parts could be salvaged, to him, a slight stain was enough to shatter absolute integrity. So everything had to be rebuilt from scratch. Costs soared, the schedule stretched by months, and pressure weighed on MGM. But Kubrick would rather bleed time and money than accept imperfection on screen. And then, before being praised, the film tasted the cruelty of the public right at the first premiere. 7. Hundreds of viewers stood up and walked out at the very first screening. Can you believe it? One of the greatest films in cinema history was once turned away by its premiere audience. On opening night in New York in 1968, the theatre expected to erupt in applause, but instead there was awkward silence and whispers of displeasure. Strange imagery, slow pacing, silence stretched to the point of eeriness, all formed a wall challenging the patience of the mainstream audience then. As abstract scenes followed one another, waves of people began leaving their seats. The final number shocked Hollywood. 241 people walked out during the first screening. Among them, star Rock Hudson could not restrain himself and blurted out in the theatre, "What the hell is it?" The press attacked the next day, labelling the film long-winded, incomprehensible, unbearable. For many, it was the end of an ambitious project. Yet weeks later, that very strangeness enchanted the hippie youth. They watched it again and again as a spiritual trip, syncing LSD with the Stargate sequence and turning the film into a counterculture symbol. The bitter failure of the premiere turned out to be the beginning of an immortal legend. And while audiences sank into the trance, a much greater worry arrived from outer space itself. 8. The Apollo 11 obsession kept Kubrick sleepless night after night. While the crew painstakingly created an artificial lunar surface, the real world outside was witnessing a breathless space race. NASA was moving closer to putting humans on the moon, and that very thing kept Kubrick from eating and sleeping. He feared that being a step late would make the film outdated upon release. Under crushing pressure, Kubrick poured everything into the effects team. He demanded every rock, every shadow on the moon model reach such realism that it could be placed next to any NASA documentary footage. Every detail had to be more real than real, as if the crew had secretly gone into space and shot directly. And then, ironically, when Apollo 11 landed in 1969, the real images were so similar they made the world suspicious. The hyper-real footage of Kubrick became the cause of one of the most famous conspiracy theories, that he filmed a fake landing for the US government. From the fear of being overtaken, Kubrick unintentionally created an immortal legend. But now, a mysterious black monolith was also waiting to write the next chapter. 9. The monolith icon was once only a failed crystal. The first idea of that mysterious object was not the black block we know, but a gigantic transparent crystal panel. Kubrick wanted it to shine, catching lights like a divine symbol. But on set, the crystal reflected everything: the camera, the lights, the crew. Every shot failed miserably. In desperation, Kubrick chose a solution so simple it seemed trivial: a wooden block coated with a special black finish to absorb all light. Yet that very stopgap accidentally created an immortal icon. With nothing reflected, the monolith became an anonymous door, an absolute black hole where viewers could project any meaning: God, extraterrestrial intelligence, or human evolution. A technical failure turned into the most mysterious metaphysical icon in cinema history. And from that silent block, Kubrick continued to test actors with a gigantic mechanical construction that was both a masterpiece and a hazard. 10. The giant gravity wheel could have crushed actors at any time. To recreate the concept of artificial gravity, Kubrick had a colossal centrifuge built, 38 feet in diameter, weighing more than 30 tons, a gigantic steel hamster wheel. It truly rotated during filming, and actors had to walk, run, even eat while the entire set turned upside down around them. Gary Lockwood and Keir Dalia, the two leads, had to train every step, because losing balance even once could hurl them into the steel frame weighing tens of tons. Those minutes of filming demanded not only acting, but also a test of physical and mental endurance. A small mistake could have turned the set into a fatal accident scene. But thanks to that very danger, the image of astronauts walking inside a rotating zero-gravity ring became one of the most realistic and haunting scenes in cinema history. And from the giant machine, Kubrick moved to another experiment where light and chemicals created a visual journey never seen before. 11. The Stargate sequence was in fact an unanticipated chemical accident. The pinnacle of 2001, A Space Odyssey, is when Dave Bowman plunges into a journey through the universe, falling into a swirl of surreal colours that viewers today call the Stargate sequence. The incredible thing is that the entire hypnotic vision was not made by computer, since CGI did not yet exist. Instead, Douglas Trumbull, the master of special effects, experimented with a technique no one had ever done: slit-scan photography. He shone light through paintings, narrow slits, and even chemicals, then let the camera expose for minutes, even hours for each frame. The result was a chain of unexpected, unrepeatable images. With every film development, the crew witnessed a new universe born, full of shifting colours, both scientific and accidental. That very uncontrollability created the feeling of witnessing a real hallucination, which stunned the world when first seen. And amid that vortex of light, Kubrick prepared a cold decision that shocked the entire film music world. 12. The entire original score was cut by Kubrick at the last moment. Throughout production, Kubrick assigned renowned composer Alex North to write the entire soundtrack. North worked day and night, creating a grand, complex score suited to the film's epic nature. Then, just days before release, Kubrick made an unexpected decision. He discarded the entire score, replacing it with existing classical works by Strauss, Ligeti, and Khachaturian. For North, it was a heavy shock. He learned the truth only when he entered the theatre for the premiere and found his music completely gone. For Kubrick, the choice was strategic. Classical music, already immortal, would make the film transcend time. And he was right. Also, Sprach Zarathustra and the Blue Danube became inseparable from cinema history. But the ruthlessness did not stop, because at the end, Kubrick was ready to scrap an entire alien world that had been built. That the Crystal City of Aliens was erased right before shooting. In the first drafts, the ending of 2001, A Space Odyssey was not the surreal hotel room, but a majestic spectacle. Dave Bowman directly encountering an extraterrestrial civilization with a shimmering crystal city and sprawling surreal architecture. Kubrick even approved drawings, built models, and prepared to film. Yet at the last minute, he realized a cold truth. Any image of aliens would appear fake, unworthy of the film's stature. A slight off-tone would ruin the entire metaphysical illusion he wanted viewers to feel. So Kubrick ordered all sets demolished, every trace erased, choosing an abstract ending with the Star Child. That very emptiness, that lack of specificity, made the ending immortal, inviting countless interpretations. With the same spirit, Kubrick seeded another detail, just a cut, but so haunting it changed the history of editing. 40. A cut from bone to satellite consumed weeks of obsession. Do you realise that a single cut of less than 1 second could change the entire history of cinema? It is the moment the bone thrown into the air instantly becomes a satellite in space, a time jump that compresses millions of years of human evolution. To viewers, it passes neatly and decisively, as if obvious. But behind it was the result of weeks of obsession, where Stanley Kubrick and editor Ray Lovejoy sat calculating each rotation, each transition beat, each thousandth of a second in the frame. They tried again and again hundreds of times, so the bone would fall on the right trajectory, rotate at the perfect speed, matching exactly the satellite's flight path. A cut that seemed simple was in fact the crystallization of perfectionism bordering on pathology. And that brief moment became one of the greatest icons of 20th century cinema. But Kubrick's obsession did not stop at frames. It seeped into how he directed the actors themselves, turning them into lost figures within the very film they were making. 15. Even the actors did not know what they were acting in. Kubrick was famous for his secretive methods, and with 2001, A Space Odyssey, he deliberately kept the entire script under wraps, even from those involved. Keir Dullea, who played Dave Bowman, admitted that throughout filming, he was not sure whether his character was truly human or some extraterrestrial entity. Gary Lockwood, who played Frank Poole, fell into a similar state, often filming important scenes without understanding where they fit in the story. Kubrick wanted that confusion to become a real part of the film. He believed that if the actors were bewildered, the audience would feel exactly the same. Instead of merely acting, they were experiencing the blur and uncertainty that Kubrick intended to sow. The result was faces of astonishment, searching eyes, and a sense of drifting in aimlessness that became chillingly authentic. And while the actors were still submerged in ambiguity, outside, an entire generation of viewers turned the film into a spiritual journey never seen before. 6. Hippies turned the theatre into a collective hallucination journey. In the late 1960s, as America was engulfed in counterculture, 2001, A Space Odyssey unintentionally became a spiritual guide for a whole generation. The vividly coloured Stargate scene, already difficult for traditional audiences, became a promised land for hippies. They entered theatres with LSD, synced dosage to the film's rhythm, and let light and sound swallow them in hallucination. For them, the film was no longer a film, but a collective spiritual voyage. MGM quickly noticed this phenomenon. Instead of rejecting it, they seized the opportunity, releasing a new poster with the shocking line, "The Ultimate Trip." From an initial box office failure, 2001 suddenly rose as a monument of counterculture, where cinema fused with rock music, drugs, and the rebellious spirit of a whole generation. But while audiences were floating outside, on set, a dry breathing sound became the most haunting detail. 17. The heavy breathing inside the astronaut helmet was added at the last minute. At first, the space scenes in 2001 were immersed in absolute silence. But in post-production, Kubrick realized that silence was too cold, too removed from human sensation. So he made an unexpected decision: add every breath of the astronauts. The sound team immediately recorded real breathing inside sealed helmets, placing microphones close to the mouth to capture all the urgency and suffocation. Once mixed in, everything changed completely. Suddenly, viewers felt as if they too were trapped in a tight helmet, hearing each inhale and exhale amid the infinite void. That breathing turned silence into fear, turned quiet into claustrophobia. A detail that seemed minor became an iconic sound mark. And even when the camera stopped, the influence of that physical obsession still clung to the actors, sending them home with a distorted sensation in real life. 18. After stepping out of the centrifuge, actors still felt the world spinning. On screen, the scene of astronauts walking around the centrifuge, a giant 38-foot wheel, looked smooth and graceful. In truth, Gary Lockwood and Keir Dalia had to battle their own senses. They walked, ran, ate and acted while the entire set rotated. Bodies adapted, but minds were pushed to the edge. Lockwood recounted, after many hours of filming, when stepping off the set, he still felt the outside world spinning. Reality warped, as if he had just returned from space. That confusion between hallucination and real life tinted their performances even more strangely, making audiences believe these were people truly living in the far reaches of space. And while those illusions seeped into every frame, Kubrick prepared a detail so peculiar it is hard to believe. A secret toilet manual, 19. A 10-step toilet in space manual flashes by for an instant. Kubrick was famous for obsession with detail, and 2001 is absolute proof. In a fleeting shot on the Orion spacecraft, one can see a small sign: Zero Gravity Toilet. At first glance, it is just a background prop, but when fans paused the frame, they found a detailed manual with 10 steps guiding how to use the toilet in zero gravity. From strapping the body with belts to procedures for waste handling, everything was written as if real. Though ordinary viewers could not catch it, the mere fact that Kubrick spent time thinking through it and printing a full instruction sheet shows he missed no detail. In Kubrick's world, even going to the toilet had to meet scientific standards. But that small detail was still nothing, because at the peak, Kubrick turned the audience into test subjects for the most haunting scene. 20. Kubrick secretly measured audience heart rates to tune the Stargate sequence. When completing the Stargate sequence, Kubrick did not just sit in the editing room, he turned audiences into guinea pigs for an unprecedented cinematic experiment. In test screenings, he arranged devices to measure physiological responses, heart rate, breathing, muscle tension. He observed every change in the viewers' bodies as the swirling lights dragged them into a visual maze. If the heart rate was not fast enough, the scene was extended. If the tension did not peak, colour and cutting rhythm were adjusted. Kubrick wanted not just to edit a scene, but to create an experience like a real hallucination, forcing viewers to pass through it with both body and mind. The result was a Stargate sequence that became one of the most powerful cinematic experiences, where the boundary between art and psychological experiment vanished entirely. And thanks to that, 2001, A Space Odyssey was not just a film, it became an experiment carved permanently into cinema history. 2001, A Space Odyssey is absolute proof of Stanley Kubrick's ahead-of-its-time vision. The film not only pioneered special effects, but also opened an entirely new cinematic language. Every frame carries philosophical force, compelling viewers to reflect on their own existence. To this day, the work retains its haunting power and irreplaceable epic stature. If you find this video engaging, please hit like and share so that more people can explore it. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel so you will not miss cinematic secrets.